All right. Good evening, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy third Tuesday in our Mindset Makeover May. So it's great to see your faces. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a combined group call for the Flash family of teams and the Together We Sent Rising Stars all warmed up family of teams. You have superstar directors Andrea Hatch, Tammy Frazier, myself, and Anna Hughes. And we welcome all of you. Thank you for getting on with us tonight to share in this special time with our very, very special guest, Deb Bowden from Scentsy's home office. Those of you that know her, love her. And if you haven't gotten the opportunity to spend time with Deb, you are in for a treat. We are honored to have her here with us tonight. And she is the perfect person in our Mindset Month to speak with us and to spend some time with us. And so, but Tammy or Anna or Rand, do you guys want to say anything, or we'll dive right in?
I think give the time to Deb. I don't need to say anything.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, Deb, the floor is yours, and thank you for being here with us.
Well, thanks so much for allowing me to be here with all of you. Melissa called me, I think it was last week, and explained to me what you all have been doing. And I have just been buzzing about all of it, thinking about all of it, thinking about all the great things that are happening, all the great momentum that is happening, to the point that I have been waking up in the middle of the night, and that's a good thing. I do it all the time anyway, but just thinking about all of you and what I might be able to talk about tonight to add to all of the collective goodness that is going on with your mindset group. I'm big on mindset. Some of you may know my background is learning and development. My background is how people learn, how the brain works to help people learn, human behavior change. That's my specialty. And so when somebody calls me in my car on the way to work and says, "Hey, see, I just learned this defines how old you are." Like if you want to say that you're young, you say, so when someone calls me and I talk to them, this is the new reference, holding the phone out. I get so excited to be able to talk about things in this space. So let me provide a high-level outline to maybe the main topics I was thinking about as I thought about all of you so much over the last week, and then hopefully stitch it all together in a way that works really, really well with what you've been doing. I thought some about inertia, and so I'm going to talk about that. That then led me to think a little bit more about mindset, which you know a lot about, but then I started tying inertia and mindset together, which then took me to inertia, mindset, and accountability, and then inertia, mindset, accountability, community, and connection. So that's where I'm going with all of this. We talk a lot at home office about this notion of inertia, and I've heard SSDs refer to it as they talk about with whom you might want to work more, or who's showing a lot of interest and energy towards something. But let's just think about it more broadly in life, outside of Scentsy, whatever point of reference that you want. Newton's first law of motion says that an object in motion will stay in motion, or an object at rest will stay at rest, unless it is acted upon by some outside force. So the key is to think about this notion of inertia. We want to be that thing that's in constant motion, now that you've got that going over the last 21 days, and be aware of what outside forces might get in our way. You've already experienced at the beginning of those 21 days that it's a little hard to get things started sometimes. Inertia makes you work a little bit harder at the start, but then once you get things going, it's easier. You see my little bike back here? I rode that this morning, and that's an inertia machine, because I get on that bike at early AM, and you push, and that first couple times around is harder. And then as you get better and better, you can deal with a little bit more resistance, which takes me to the resistance topic. So I'm going to look down at a couple of notes just because I don't want to miss out anything. So Inertia makes us resistant to change, even if the change is ultimately good for us. So think about that. We get in this little bit of a groove, and then we think, well, this is really good. We used to talk about it in my old job that we create not just neural pathways in our brain, we create ruts. And we just love those little ruts or comfort zones to keep doing things the same way because the brain is naturally resistant to change. Now, if we know that, though, we can start to leverage that to our advantage. So think about it. You know that you want to exercise more. I've been there so many times in my life that I want to do that more regularly. And we know that change is ultimately good, but we know that the brain will work against us for it. So I might anticipate the hurdle of that. And then I want to be proactive and think about, okay, how can I make it easier for my brain and then the rest of me to get over that hurdle, to overcome that resistance? So for me, sometimes it's putting out the shoes so that right when my feet hit the ground, that's right there for me, or having an accountability buddy. We'll talk more a little bit about that. But the bottom line here is that resistance is going to happen. Your brain's going to work against you sometimes in developing these habits, and we just got to get over that first hurdle. So once we get over that first hurdle, we can then look at what are the forces for good, because inertia requires an external force to create the change. So think about what forces are working for your good. Again, we'll go back to, could be that accountability partner. It could be that you write things down. I used to teach in the olden days. Some of you may remember paper planners where you'd write down things to do and then check them off a list. That used to be my job, traveling all around to do that. And I will own up to the fact that I would sometimes write things on my list that I had already accomplished just to be able to check them off because I enjoyed the dopamine hit. And we'll talk more about dopamine coming up. But the dopamine then created the extra force to give me that extra inertia as I would work my way through some additional things on my list. Now, those forces come from two different places. There's an internal force. And so we'll talk more about mindset. That's what you've all been working on. I got to get myself in the right kind of motivational headspace to make that happen. And then I can also see external forces. Sometimes it's personality. If you're more introverted, I don't like to go to big exercise classes, for example. I prefer to exercise alone. So kind of internal forces work well for me on that one. But for other things, external forces are super great. For example, I might have a big project that I'm working on, and I'm doing a lot of work on that. And it helps me for Jeff to come by, or Jason to come by, or Sarah to come by. Hey, how's that going? Tell me about the latest piece that you're working on, kind of thing. So I incorporate those external forces for good. Now, the third thing is we talk about inertia. Melissa and I talked about when I was driving to work, and she talked about this great idea that you've all had. And it is this notion of starting small. Sometimes we make the mistake, particularly at the end of the year when we're setting New Year's resolutions and big goals. And that's another reason that I love that you're doing this in May. What a perfect time, because we overcome all these bad habits that we have of saying at the end of the year, coming up on, all right, starting January 1st, I'm going to exercise an hour a day. Starting January 1st, I'm going to read one book a week. Starting January 1st, we paint ourselves into a corner of failure, essentially. But starting small is the better strategy. To create momentum, all you need are these little steps in the right direction. And then inertia is working to our advantage. These little steps then create routine. And routine helps us. Our brain loves routine. Remember, we started there. We said our brain is sometimes resistant to change because the brain likes where it is. It likes the routine. So we make those little baby steps. We then start to create a new routine, and the brain says, oh, this feels good. I like this. So I jotted down on my paper, inertia is all about, this is my big takeaway in this section, consistency and not perfection. You need to embrace this notion, okay? Inertia is all about consistency and not perfection. So as Melissa and I talked about some of the things that you've been working on and some of the examples, that's the key. It's these little steps in the right direction every day, hydration break, that keep us moving. Okay, that takes us then to mindset. Now, Heidi Norville in 2017, for those of you who've been around a while, talked all about mindset that year. That was right before I joined Scentsy, all growth and fixed mindset. So I'm going to come at it in a slightly different way. I told you that I have done lots of learning, studying, application of how the brain works, particularly applied to how we learn. So get this, okay? The reward system in our brain is what's called the dopamine pathway. And we talked about dopamine. Dopamine feels really good to us. And it's actually a pretty large system. It connects multiple parts of the brain to work to our advantage. Now, one common misunderstanding, and you can personally own up if you've had this, because I know I did, when it comes to that reward system, is that what the brain wants is the reward. It wants the final accomplishment. That's what the brain is seeking. But here's what science tells us. The brain releases more dopamine when it anticipates the reward before it actually gets the reward. So think about that as it applies to all that you've been doing. If you are constantly working toward that reward, you are getting these constant dopamine hits that will far exceed when you get to the end of that, say, 30-day goal or whatever, and say, done. It'll still feel good, honestly. But the collective benefit to your brain and how you feel is significant before you even get there. So again, it's that anticipation. The anticipation is what drives the behavior that ends up getting you the reward. Now let's put inertia and mindset together. Mindset determines how we perceive inertia. And Heidi Norville talked a lot about growth and fixed mindset, and maybe you have in this. We didn't get into that when I was driving to work, and Melissa and I talked briefly. But it can impact if we feel that pull of inertia, if we resist inertia. And so we need to get into a space where we are fans of inertia as it works to our advantage. That inertia is a good thing. Now, if we don't look at it that way, inertia can reinforce our negative mindset. We can get stuck in a rut and we can say, yeah, there's Newton's first law. I'm just stuck here. But remember what the first law said, that an object at rest will remain at rest unless acted upon by an outside force, and we are the force. See, now I just joined your group. I just jumped right in. But you are the force. Collectively, you individually are the force, and collectively you are the force as you check in on each other and help keep things moving. And a positive mindset then can be a force to help keep the momentum going and prevent us from sliding into that rut. It's a two-way relationship between inertia and mindset. And we just need to make sure that we have this growth mindset. These things are possible. I can do these things. I am making progress. Any progress is good progress. It's about consistency and not about perfection. That feeds then the growth mindset for us. Okay, now let's come around to accountability, because I loved this part that Melissa shared that you were all working on. Mindset also shapes how we perceive accountability. If you've talked about fixed mindset people do not enjoy accountability because it feels like someone's just checking on them to see if they're falling behind, if they're failing. They perceive it as pressure or criticism. It's not positive. But growth mindset people, and it sounds like that's what you're finding here in your experiment this month around mindset, see accountability as a supportive structure. As I have mentioned on several calls and things, because it's been my life for the last almost 3 years now, I'll be done at the end of this year, I decided to go back to school. And for my school program, I have to do a lot of writing, and I have to submit that writing to get feedback. And at the beginning, I will tell you, I'm someone who kind of prides myself on doing great work. And I would get things back and I would think, oh my goodness, I mean, they have so much to say about how wrong this is. That's how I felt. And then we kept having class after class after class where they said, okay, you got to get this through your heads as you go through this process. Feedback is academic love. And I thought, well, that's kind of a crazy expression. But then I embraced it. And I will tell you that I am so appreciative for every time that I slave over whatever and send it on its way and it comes back and somebody has taken the time to read it and tell me how to make it better. So think about how that applies to the work that you've been doing. As you check on each other, and more broadly, as you work with each other, you have many, many talents. And sometimes we offer feedback to each other. Hey, have you ever thought about doing this or this or this? That feedback, thanks, Jennifer, is what helps us get better. It's not a criticism. It helps us perceive accountability in the positive way and continue to get better. Heidi has talked so much about progress. If you're not uncomfortable or you're not growing, et cetera, you string all those things together and it feeds this notion. The second thing is that accountability can reinforce that positive mindset. Now, as I understand the way you've all been working together, you've had regular check-ins to be able to report out what you're doing. That's an excellent way to support that. And another thing you can do is have that external support. So even outside this program, maybe you filled somebody in your family in on what you're doing here. And they've asked, so how is that coming for you? Awesome. I will tell you, my son, who's 22, still lives at home, and my husband lives here. So it's just the three of us. They have no idea what I'm doing in school, and that's okay. I wouldn't want to bore them. I always tell people if eventually they want to read what I'm working on, I will check first if they have a solid case of insomnia, and then I'll be happy to send it their way. But they don't really know exactly what it is yet. I so appreciate when they say, how's it coming? How's your week been? What kind of progress did you make? That makes such a huge difference for all of us to have someone check in. Growth mindset then reinforces the concept of accountability. When accountability is implemented effectively, it reinforces that growth mindset, that feedback is good. This person checking in on me is good. This is helpful. This keeps me moving. I jotted down a little quote here about how all this ties together. Both mindset and accountability are crucial for achieving goals. A growth mindset allows you to view accountability as a positive force, while effective accountability can reinforce a growth mindset. By cultivating both, you can create a powerful feedback loop that propels you forward on your journey to success. I love loops that because and Orville talked about, some of you remember the spiral. Just anytime that we can keep doing things and keep getting better and better and better, again, taking advantage of all the brain science and things really, really helps us get better. Okay, so I'm going to tie it all together, and then I'll open it up for any kind of questions, comments, or thoughts. And I haven't been able to read all of your chat, but I so appreciate you chiming in, and I'm seeing the little pop-ups as I go. I know that a big benefit of what you've been doing is connection and community. And even though I'm not a part of your group, I can see this all the time. As Melissa and I talked, I could hear it and feel it as I watch on Facebook, as people check in on each other and cheer each other on, etc. That sense of connection and community becomes critical here as we talk about feeding mindset and feeding inertia and supporting accountability. Feeling connected to other people fosters a sense of belonging and support. If I feel that I belong and I feel supported, then accountability is like a lovely hug. If you're a hugger, I know not everyone's a hugger, but it's just a great hug. It's a great reinforcement. It's a great reminder that you belong here and I belong here, and we're going to make our way on this together. A positive mindset opens us up to building stronger relationships. Why? Because our defenses aren't up now. We're all setting goals, and it doesn't matter what the goal is. Again, it's just about progress, not perfection. And as we let down those defenses that it's not this competition, right? It's just let's all do this together. It feels different. And that's where we create our sense of community. I used to contrast, some of you have kids in school. I think my kids, particularly during junior high or middle school, home became a real safe haven because it didn't feel like the competition. I would look for ways to create that feeling of safety and home in the communities that you build. And I would hope that in this mindset group that you have, that there's that sense of that as you check in, it's like, yeah, this feels really good. I feel good here. I'm just checking in as I might with my family to make things happen. We need to engage with others. We need to share our experiences. We need to offer support to each other. And that's how we make the difference. Now, I'll bring it all the way around. When I was about 20 years old, I was assigned to this community thing to go speak to groups of teenage girls. And I have always been, long before I taught time management, really particular. Like if somebody says, okay, we're going to meet from 10 to 10:30, I like to honor that time. I know not everybody feels that way, and that's totally fine. In fact, I will be totally honest and say I will have to recalibrate my feelings about time when Heidi and Orville return, because they are pulled in so many different directions, and there's kind of a different sense of time when they're walking around home office, and that's totally fine. That'll help me grow. But then when I was 20, right, thinking, okay, this is how it always has to be. I was speaking at something in the morning. And so we had this half-hour time slot, and several people were speaking, and I was watching for my time slot. And everybody before me was going over. Everybody before me. And so I got up, and the 10 minutes that I was supposed to have or so became 2. And I was talking about goal setting, and I'm thinking in my head, how do you talk about this to teenagers? And I said, maybe it's that little moment of inspiration. I said, so here's what I want you to do. If you've been looking at your bedroom and it just seems daunting to take it on, could you just go home from this meeting and maybe pick up or put away one thing? That's all I want you to do, is just the one thing. And then tomorrow, see if you can do one more thing and kind of build up this momentum. Exactly what we're talking about here. So I go home and I'm just kicking myself thinking, what could anybody ever get out of that silly 2 minutes and pick up one thing? I mean, how is that ever going to make a difference? So fast forward just months, maybe even more than a year later, I run into one of those girls, and she says, you know what? I had always tried to tackle kind of the whole thing. And it was so discouraging to me because I never could. And it wasn't until I heard that it was okay to just go and do the one thing and then try to do the one more thing the next day that I finally figured out what worked for me. And so now here I am all these decades later telling you the very same thing, because it's still true. It's still true. I think a lot of us take on things because we're so well-meaning and we just want to tackle it all. And that's great. I think that's a great desire. Just don't let it work against you. And instead work with each other to make slow but steady progress, because it's the tortoise that won that race and not the hare. And that's what I was thinking about for all of you.
Oh, you're the best. Right. So the chat is,
Oh, I got to pull that up.
there's not really, it's people agreeing with you. It's a lot of people said they fear the feedback, and that you shifted perspective on that. Some said they love the feedback. Some said that they fear the feedback. but a lot of it was just praising you as who you
Mm.
are. And
Well, thanks. Yeah, feedback, that can be a hard one, and I will go through phases kind of where I can be a little bit bristly. I will say though, I'm trying to become increasingly sensitive to what is causing that, and it's typically not the feedback, right? It's just a lot of other things happening around the feedback that cause me to hear it in maybe a more defensive way. So I always try to assume good intent. People are telling me this because they love me and they want to help me get better. And then I need to be really aware of what's going on around me to help with that. I don't know if that'll help anybody else, but
well,
help me.
and like you said, and this is something that we have found through our 21 days so far in our mindset makeover, is that just one thing. We're choosing just to focus on one thing a day. And it's the inertia, it's the momentum, it's the, well, if I picked up one, could I pick up one more? And it's the, I set a 90-day goal, but if I set a 30-day goal that's going to help me get to the 90, I'm breaking it down even more.
Mhm.
And can I declutter one space, just one drawer, one closet, or in Jackie McManus's case, her husband went for the gusto and said, let's do the garage. But that's really what we've been doing, is trying to take just focusing on one thing, and how when you compound the one thing and the one thing and the one thing, how all of a sudden you feel like you've made a bigger impact.
Mhm.
And
I love
so
it. You're setting up a dopamine factory with that approach by breaking it down into smaller and smaller things and accomplishing those for sure. It makes a lot of sense. Man, I'm so intrigued by the feedback things. If it helps, Brandy, like when you're in the hate relationship with feedback, I try to ask for feedback, and then depending on how I'm feeling, I'll be really specific about the feedback for which I'm looking. So instead of just opening up the whole can of worms, like, hey, do you have any feedback about that? And then somebody might say, well, your hair looked weird. And then I'll just think about that for the next week. And that wasn't even what I was looking for, kind of thing. Just ask, what do you think about the pacing of that? Or did the questions work to open up conversation or something? Be specific, because I'll apply what Melissa just said. We do best when we kind of grow one step at a time versus just say, I'll take, presenting or whatever, that I want to go, from here to here. So I'm going to improve every single thing I need to go from here to here all at once. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's incremental, and feedback should be incremental too.
yeah. Anybody drop
I'll say
anything?
that
Oh, go ahead.
for me, the one of the things that has really helped me shift recently is moving the word choice from I should do something to I want to do something, or I'd like to do something, because it gives me that, like, I'm doing something for myself rather than I'm feeling like bad about the fact that I haven't done it. I should do that. Instead, I'd like to do that, or I want to do that. So that's been a
I
big.
love that. I heard a whole presentation from a guy who said that he shifted every I have to in his role to I get to. And just by changing that, it kind of changed his mindset about the job. And he started thinking about, well, not everybody gets to do this. Even though this isn't my favorite thing, I get to do it. And it changed it.
I love that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
add that one to my little pile of word choice.
There you go.
Well, Anna, I'm still walking around hearing you in my head saying, stop shooting on yourself. Yeah. So that has become sticky. So changing those words, but anybody else?
Sarah Walker uses the stop shooting a lot too.
Oh yeah.
So I get to hear that. Yep, yep.
Yeah. Of course, every time you say it, somebody says, "What did you just say?"
I know.
Of course.
I know.
So you get
And
to,
it's a good thing we don't have the Zoom captioning on, because that probably would have made that mistake for
it
all
would
of
have,
us.
I'm sure.
Well, could I just say this again? Thank you so much. I am so impressed by all that you are doing. And I'm really sincere in saying that I was so excited just thinking about your project and being able to jump in and talk with you a little bit about all the great things that you've been doing. If you think of something else and I can be helpful at all, you just want to bounce ideas off of somebody or whatever, you know where to find me. You can DM me, you can email me. Everybody's email address, just about everybody at Scentsy, is first initial. So mine's D for Deb, and then last name. Mine's Bowden. So D Bowden at Scentsy.com, or J Harwood at Scentsy.com, or S Walker at Scentsy.com. That's how you find all of us. So you could email, if Melissa has my cell phone number, so you can text me, just give me a shout, and I'm happy to help in any way. And we appreciate y'all so much.
Well, we appreciate you so much and all that you do for all of us above and beyond. When I had asked Deb, I said, I know that our call is outside of business hours, so I feel like I'm asking for a very huge favor. She said, Melissa, I have a hard time having anything be outside of business hours. And that's proof to the dedication you have given to all of us, that you have given to Scentsy, and that you continue to bring. We love you. We thank you. Thank you for spending time with us tonight.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Have a great night, and I hope to see all of you at SFR, or many of you. Find me, and we'll chat. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thanks so much, Deb.
Bye.
And you guys, thank you so much for getting on tonight. And we're gonna go out with Deb taking us out. I appreciate you. Oh, Rand, wait. I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot. Hold on. We have our giveaway for tonight.
So many people on here tonight. It's amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a bigger bowl. Okay.
Hey, while
And
you're finding me, hey, just because she just brought this up, isn't Thursday the last day to register for SFR?
It is the 23rd.
Just if you're still on the fence, just jump. We'll figure it all out. It's so worth it. It's the best time, and you won't regret it. So that's all I have to say.
If for nothing else, if you cannot attend in person, virtual. You have 2 more days to sign up for virtual SFR. Please. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Celebrating the 20th year.
Yeah, it is gonna be amazing. So, okay. I'm actually wanting to pick 2 names tonight, but there's so many of them in here. So,
Ooh.
okay, our first one. Rachel Pajot.
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Second one. Tammy B.
Tammy B.
Yay!
Not sure who Tammy B is, but
Yeah, Tammy B is one of my girlfriends.
I love it.
And she just cheered for herself. Rach cheered in the chat, and Tammy B cheered in the chat.
Perfect. Just send me your address, please, and then I can get those out to you.
Yep. And so you'll be sending your addresses to Andrea Hatch. You can send her a private message. Thank you guys for getting on tonight. I really appreciate it. And we have virtual cubicle tomorrow morning and Thursday night shift on Thursday, and continuing on Mindset. Let's go do some great things. You guys, thanks so much for getting on tonight.